Developments in the Fast and Furious showdown on Capitol Hill. Right now, our Capitol Hill senior producer, Chad Pergram, is reporting as many as 20 Democratic members of the House will join Republicans to vote yes to hold Attorney General Eric Holder in contempt of Congress. Holder is accused of withholding critical information on the gun-running program. Our next guest will vote no on contempt. In fact, he's taken to the editorial pages, saying the investigation is, quote, the latest partisan attack on the Obama administration. California Congressman Adam Schiff writes that the House vote is, quote, setting up a protracted, unnecessary, and expensive court battle between co-equal branches of government about the extent of executive privilege. To say this is a tragic misuse of Congress's power is an understatement. That from the congressman who joins us now. Congressman, nice to have you with us.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Jenna.
Let me ask you this question about executive privilege just to start off. Executive privilege was asserted back in 2008 with the Bush administration. White House officials were voted in contempt. So why is this a tragic misuse of Congress's power now and it wasn't then?
Well, because then you had a situation where Harriet Miers and Josh Bolten refused to testify at all before Congress, refused to provide any documents whatsoever. Contrast that with an Attorney General that has testified 9 times and produced about 8,000 documents, and you can see the situation is pretty much night and day. There you had a blanket refusal whatsoever to cooperate, and here you have a Justice Department that has cooperated extensively. And unfortunately, I think what we're going to see happen is we are going to litigate this after we have a mostly partisan vote tomorrow. It will be resolved in court by a settlement which will provide that the Attorney General will provide the same documents it's offering to provide right now. But we have gone through years of expense and delay for nothing. And that's what I hope we can avoid, and I hope the parties will still come to the table so we can resolve this without having to abuse the Congress's contempt power tomorrow.
Let me go back to what you said about it being a partisan attack. I know you wrote that in your editorial. You also mentioned that it'll be mostly along party lines, but it seems that every hour we're getting more Democrats that are saying they are going to vote yes to hold Eric Holder in contempt. So does your argument about it being a partisan attack, is that not accurate at this time?
No, it's still accurate. The only change has been the NRA has now weighed in, and they've said they're going to score this. So if you want a perfect record with the NRA, you have to vote to hold the Attorney General in contempt. Now, that's a strange decision for the NRA to make, but whenever the NRA endorses something, people who want a perfect record with them are going to vote for it, and that's going to bring along probably a couple dozen Democrats.
I see. So you say it's just political because election year politics.
It unfortunately is all about election year politics at this point.
So,
the investigation, I think, started out.
Congressman, if I could just, I was trying to take a step back from this story because obviously there's a lot of sides to it. And in some ways it seems very bipartisan in the fact that none of you want another young man to die because of a government program. And none of you, Republican or Democrat, want to see a program like Fast and Furious happen again. I mean, that's something that both of you agree on. I say both of you, meaning both sides of Congress. So at this point, in the effort to never make the same mistake again, why not just make all the documents, whether they're from February of this year, from the night that Brian Terry died, and just put everything on the table in good faith to try to make sure it never happens again?
Well, that's a perfect good question, and you're right. Members on both sides of the aisle want to get to the bottom of how did these gun-walking operations, both under the Bush administration and under the Obama administration, how did they get started? Why did they continue? Those are facts we want to get to. Now, the question also should be, why hasn't the committee called anyone like the head of the ATF, who was responsible for this program? Why haven't they called anyone who knows the origins under the last administration to compare with how it began under this administration? The reality is that those questions, which go so much to how this got started, how this bad idea got started, the committee has lost interest in. All it wants right now is things that took place after the case and that operation was shut down. And as they've asked for more and more documents.
If I could, Congressman, I'm sorry to interrupt. Those committee members, I understand it is a majority of Republicans, and the committee is both Republican and Democrat that call this, and I understand that there's some frustration on the Democratic side. We've heard from Congressman Becerra last hour about who's being called and who's not. At the same time, these are elected officials from the American people that are supposed to represent what the American people want. So is it really is this really along partisan lines, or are you really saying that the people that have been chosen by the people are just not making the right decisions?
Well, of course, you get members of both parties sitting on the committee, but you have the GOP members who run the committee and decide we are not going to call these witnesses because we don't like what they have to say. We're not going to call the head of ATF because he will say that he never disclosed any of this information to the Attorney General, and apparently the committee isn't interested in that. It's only interested in facts that will support its predetermined conclusion. Well, as a former prosecutor, that's not how you run an investigation. Now you asked the question too, well, why shouldn't the Justice Department just turn over everything and anything?
And I only have 30 seconds, so I'm just giving you a heads up.
Both administrations have, I think, asserted properly at times a claim of executive privilege to cover deliberative communications, internal communications, so they can have a candid, free flow of information.
Thank you, Congressman. It's nice to have your perspective today. We look forward to following up with you as well. And we'll be right back with more Happening Now.